Hi Noteboard Gamers, and welcome back to Noteboard Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video we're going to be taking a quick look of the solo of this game right here, which is Mutagen by Dranda Games, designed by Alexandros Kapidakis, with the artwork by the Micho and a solo mode by the one and only David Digby. Now, Mutagen is a customizable worker placement action selection game with elements of kind of set collection in there as well, set in a biopunk kind of 1920s. And you're going to play one of the characters, and you're going to be you're going to be on an airship that's floating over this land. And you're going to go out there and you're going to try and collect elements to either boost your ship by installing them on their ship, or storing those elements so you can spend them for other things, so that you can start moving up on some of these tracks here. We have the cog track at the top, we have the progress track down here, and the aim of this game, it's obviously after 4 rounds, is to try to get as many points as possible. It's a fully kind of customizable game, as your characters are potentially going to mutate throughout. Here we can see the spy here has got a little lobster claw on here. Now these additions that you can put on are in the deluxe version of the game. You don't necessarily need them, but they're a nice visual flair on there. And those mutations that they get, and there's going to be a number of mutations cards you can choose to buy at the beginning of each round, are going to effectively give you another action. You see, the game is, you're going to move your work, and you get 4 workers. You get a robot, here we go. We get a thug, which is this guy here. We get a spy, which is this guy here. And we get an engineer, which is this one here. Okay, and on each part of the board where you can place them, there are actions you can take. There's a location action which you can take at each location, and then there's a character specific action that you can take if you put that particular character on there. So each one has a number of actions for the characters that you're putting on there. But also, if you've got a mutation on your character that you're placing on there, you can actually do the mutation action at the same time as well. Now, there are a number of spaces on each of these locations, and what will happen is that you will take the top available space on your action. If the next player comes on and places it below you and you have a mutation, you get the chance to pay the cost on your mutation card and effectively do a reaction. So it is possible that you could take up to 3 actions at each location. This gives it this really good combo nature. When you're taking elements from the board, and that's these things here, there are a number of different elements that you've got on the board. When you're taking those from the board, you're not necessarily going to take them from the area where you are. The location action may allow you to do that, but then there'll also be the location action will ask you to take it from another area. But the worker action, if you put the thug out, may actually take it from there, or it may actually take it from elsewhere. So you get this interactivity between the various areas. So you're looking at where you're placing it and where you can get the elements that are out there. You also get the opportunity to get these workers. And look at this wonderful artwork by the Micho. Here we go. These are going to provide end-game scoring based on where you are on the cog track, which is at the top of the board. You can spend elements to move up that track, and that will score your points at each round, at the end of each round, depending on how far up that track you are. But also, it's really important for end-game scoring. So you've got this element of kind of working out your end-game goals as you go along as well, which is really, really exciting. There are also these tree cards. You can spend elements for tree cards. Here we go. Now, you need the kind of right number of elements that you can spend for these, and the right colour and number of elements for these, and that's going to give you shards, because shards are what you collect throughout the game, and these are your currency in the game itself. That will allow you to potentially buy more mutations, or it will allow you to actually do your reactions when you've been triggered by somebody going on the space directly below you. So what you've got is kind of wonderful mix of kind of joining up all these various elements of the game and trying to make it into this high scoring experience from you, and that's where the game really, really shines. It's definitely kind of a lower medium weight worker placement action selection type game. Really, really accessible game with the lore, and I must admit the lore is kind of neither here nor there for me. I don't think it totally works in terms of the lore. I can see why it's all there to glue everything together, but you have a lot of fun kind of working out where you go. Now the game is 1 to 4 players. Obviously from 2 players onwards you're playing with other people, but for a solo gamer there is a bot designed by David Digby, and the bot kind of emulates almost what you do, but it does through some very, very specific actions, and it's driven by a couple of decks. You've got an action deck, which there are 8 cards, and you're going to reveal one at the beginning of each round, and the round is going to be until all players have put out all their 4 workers. And there's also a decision deck which dictates the actions it's going to take on its turns, on each turn, and you're going to draw one of those each turn. And what that's going to do is determine where the which characters go out, where they're going to go out to, depending on what you've got. So what we'll do is just drop you down very briefly to the table. I'll show you how their action and decision deck works, and then we'll come back up and talk about my final thoughts on Mutagen from Dranda Games. Okay, so here we can see everything. I'm kind of midway through a game at the moment. Now bear in mind this is a prototype, so not all components are finalised. I know there's some kind of UI to be done on the board in terms of where some of the text not showing up in some of the lighter areas, but you know, it gives you a pretty good kind of indication of what the final product's going to look like, and everything looks really, really good. Here we have my player board, and I've already got a worker out on the board there. We've got my thug out on the board. I have my robot, I have my spy, and down here I have my engineer. Up here, because the this wonderful first player token, by the way, because the it's the second round, and because the AI went first, they've got their robot and their thug on the board. They've still got their engineer, mutated engineer, and they still have their their mutated spy, and they still have their engineer there. They've got 2 mutations. I've only got 1 at this stage because I had no shards left at the end of my previous round. We're both tying on score at the moment, and that's pretty good, right at the top of the board. So you can see the various areas here. I'll just move these off so you can actually see what's on there. And each one has a symbol next to them. This is for the tree up at the top of the board here. This is where you're going to spend shards in your storage area here to actually get these tree cards back. So you can see here's a tree card. I had to spend a green shard and a blue shard, and that got me 5 points. Now at the end of the game, I'm looking for these symbols. If I have a matching pair of these symbols, that's 3 points at the end of the game. If I've only got 1 of them, that's 1 point at the end of the game. So that's end scoring for you, but also a way to generate shards for yourself as well. And the various actions that you can see underneath each of them, depending on who you put out. The top action is the is the thug. The middle action is the spy. The bottom action is the engineer. And that's the same on all of these. Your robot is a bit of a wild card, however. What he can do is actually go out and do any action that's on there, as well as taking the location action, because at the top of each of these location spaces is a location action. So you get to take that action, you get to take the relevant worker action, and if you've mutated them, you can pay the cost on the card. Sorry, you don't have to pay the cost. You can activate that to take that action as well. For example, for my thug that went out, it allowed me to get another crew card, which is one of these here, okay, which is going to give me end scoring points for where my gas and where my crystals are. If that's up highest and that's up lowest, that's going to get me 3 points at the end of the game. So that's kind of how the mutations work, but and how the location actions work. A couple of places up at the top, you can spend shards to move along the kind of the cog track up there. That's going to gain you points, which are down here in white at the moment. That will change at the end of each round, and it can affect your scoring criteria at the end of the game, as we saw here. And here we have the progress track. You're going to move around here, and you're going to claim bonuses and score points as you move around here. Basically, you're going to constantly move around. So it's a great way to actually get bonuses. You can spend shards for doing that. 2 shards are going to be 2 spaces, 4 shards 5 spaces, 6 shards are going to be 8 spaces on there. That's a good way of getting additional stuff. There are 5 bonus tokens. You're going to shuffle them, place 4 of them out, put 1 of them back in the box. Now when it comes to the elements, there are a number of different types of elements, so let's just go through them and see what they are. We have, and I just need a crystal one. Here we go, we'll take this crystal one from me. First of all, we have liquid, which you can see by this here. Then we have gas, which is this here. Then we have ore, which is this one here. And finally, we have crystal. So there are 4 types of elements, and there are 4 colours as well. So each element will come in 4 colours. And that's really, really important. On certain places, it's the element type that you need to match up. Well, not match up, should I say. So when you're putting them out here for you, not necessarily for the AI, you can't have matching elements of colour or of type or color next to each other. They're very volatile, okay? When you're spending them for the tree, what you've got to do is spend the colors of those elements for the tree, basically. So you can see that there are different ways to actually kind of do this. There's a bit of kind of a spatial puzzle in here as well. So you're going to move up on that cog track and do various things on there, and you're going to move around that progress track. You're going to do that for 4 rounds and try and get as many points as possible. Here is your installation area. You're going to take storage tiles from the ship, from the spaces on the board, basically, and you're going to put them on here, and you're going to pay the cost under there to actually put them on. Each one, if you fill each column, you get those points at the end of the round. And also for each element that you've got installed on here will give you 2 points at the end of the round as well. So you've got these multiple strategies that you're going to try and have to do. Do you want to focus on getting more mutations so you get more actions on the board? Do you want to focus on moving up the cog track or the progress track? Are you looking at the spatial puzzle here? Are you looking at more tree cards all the while? Or are you looking at your crew members that you can get? All the while you're kind of marrying all this up and trying to work out exactly how things go. So on your turn, you're going to take one of your workers. So let's say, for example, well, it is my turn now. I'm going to take my spy, and I'm going to put them up on the cog track. You put them up on the highest place on the cog track, okay? The first action I can take, and you take these in any order, first action I can spend 2 elements to move up on the correct track. Well, look at this. I have a green crystal and I have a yellow gas here. So I'm going to spend both of those go away, okay? And I'm going to move one up on the crystal track, that's me in green, and one up on the gas track, that's there. That's going to score me 2 points at the end of the round, basically. And so, you know, the moving up on there is really, really important. Of course, as I'm looking at this, I potentially want to keep my crystal low and get my gas high, because that's going to give me an additional 3 points at the end of the game. But however, on this one that I've obviously got a high liquid and a lower gas, so I've got to think about where I position things on there. But there are other things on here as well, so there we go. You're going to take the pairing of these generally cost shards, pairing of these, and that's going to give you 2 points at the end of the game. So you're going to score at the end of each round on that. So you're going to look at what you're doing on there. So I've moved up there, I've moved points on there, I've spent those. Now, as I'm the spy here, I look here, and this action, I don't know if you can see it, allows me to move 2 on the progress track. So I'm here at the moment on the progress track. I move 1 and 2. This allows me, because I've hit this particular bonus, allows me to get one of these storage tiles. However, I can't afford it because it's going to cost me a minimum of 1 to put that there. It's a 0 cost there and that there. So what I could have done is I could have forgone that action. So let's say I didn't do that, because at any point you can forgo a particular action. I could have got my gas and my my crystal back. I couldn't have done that. I could have taken a shard for forgoing that action. Then I could spend that shard, okay, to take a storage token, and we'll take this one, put that there, and pay my 1 shard. There we go. That's the end of my turn. So you can see on that, it is kind of quite easy. Now, had that been my spy and he'd got this kind of mutation action, okay, he would have been able, that one there, sorry, had he gone on any of these, he would have been able to take also a crew card as well at the same time. Some of them have cost. You have to be able to afford that cost. He didn't. So that's my spy done on there. So let's talk about the AI's turn now. So for the AI's turn, there are 8 of these action cards and 12 of these decision cards. You can see I've got some of the decision cards here that I've already used throughout the game. You're going to shuffle them, and obviously if the deck's ever empty. This kind of dictates what happens for each character depending on what they've got. And how that's going to work is we're going to turn over the top decision card, and it tells me here that I'm going to move the AI spy, which is this character here, which is still on his board. If that comes up and tells you to pick a character that's already on the board, you keep turning them over until, of course, you hit one that you can, right? So then we look on here, up here, and it says, right, does he have an active tree card? He does. He has this tree card just here, okay? So we're going to choose this action here. If he didn't have an active tree card, we then have a look, does he have 3 elements? And he would have that, but we're going left to right here. So if he didn't have an active tree card, sorry, active tree card's going to place him on the tentacle. Doesn't have that. So if he had 3 elements, it would then place him on the leaf, which is up there. And if he didn't have any of those, it would then place him on the claw, and you're going to move that and move there. So he's going to move on to the first space just up here. So I'll put him up there and show you where that is. This has got a claw next to it. There we go. And we can see he's on the claw space, which is just here. So we have a location action, we have the character action, and we're also going to take his appropriate mutation action as well. So when we look at taking a location action, it's first of all on these are called element ones. He's going to take an element. Now what he's going to do is he's going to take an element that he's got the most of on the board. Well, let's have a look. He's got one of each gas, crystal and liquid on there, so he doesn't have the most of anything. He's absolutely tied there. So then what he's going to do is he's going to pick them in a preference order, which is ore, liquid, gas or crystal. Okay, so ore is up there, so he would take the ore and put it onto his storage area up there. Now if there were multiple ores on there, he's not bothered about the colour. This arrow, wherever it's lit or where it's highlighted, would dictate that top or bottom. There's only one on there, so he's taken that as his location action. Absolutely fantastic, brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So now what's going to happen is we move on to his specific action. And we've got here that the spy would take a crew card. Now, ordinarily, you would take crew cards, and if they got cost them, you would pay for them. He doesn't collect shards or spend shards the way that we do. So he's going to take this crew card and put it into his area for end game scoring. We will refill these at the end of every turn, okay? So that's what's going to happen there. And then, finally, what's going to happen, because he's got this mutation here, okay? Let's have a look at this. It's going to tell him from the claw space, he's going to pick up the top element base, or he's going to pick up an element. So again, we're at the claw space. There's only 2 elements left on there. We know that he's now got 2 crystals, 1 liquid and 1 gas. So we know that there's 2 gases there. So it's got to be a gas, but which one does he take? Well, we go back to this and we have a look and it says, hey, okay, it's going to take the bottom one here. So there we go. He's going to take the bottom liquid, and put that onto there. Suddenly his storage area is looking exceptionally full. Now, if you have to choose any cards from the display, be that the mutations or be that these cards here, the crew cards, etc., then it tells you here, these will be highlighted differently. So here we go, I'll show you another one. And it tells you kind of which card you're going to pick up. So these decision cards are really important. The action cards drive where you're going to go, and the decision cards drive exactly what you're going to choose. So that is the end of the AI's turn. Now, for example, say on my turn, I went there. I would take my turn as an engineer, which would allow me to pick up an element. Sorry, we should have refilled that. Pick up an element. There we go. One there, perfect, okay. So I would take my turn, which would allow me to pick up an element, and also because I'm an engineer, it would allow me to also take this storage card, which I can't do anyway, because of course I can't put any more in here because I don't have any shards to pay for that. But then, because they've got a mutation on, that would allow them a reaction. It would allow me the same. I'd have to pay the cost for it, which would be the cost in white on the card there. But he gets an instant reaction at the end of my turn, okay? So after I've taken my turn, we look back here, and we pay the reaction cost here, and that would allow him to then pick up another element from on here. So reactions only work where mutations are, and it only works if somebody goes directly in front of you. If it probably wouldn't, only in a 3-player game, if there was already somebody there and that went there, which couldn't happen because you can't have 2 people on the same two of the same people on the same location, that wouldn't reactivate because it's not directly in front. So you would do that, and then at the beginning, and you go through that in a full round, then you score your end of round points, and then at the beginning of the next turn, first thing you would do actually is you would lay out 3 new mutation cards. You would draw a new decision card to see which one it takes. There we go. It's going to take this one here. Put that on the relevant place and give them the relevant upgrade. And you do that in reverse order. So whichever player is first player, it's the second player that would choose that first. If we're doing it, we have to pay the appropriate shard cost. Then you would turn over an action card, and that would give you their actions for the next turn, depending on which character they choose. And of course, how that's dictated to is by the decision cards. And that's it. The solo mode is really easy to implement in this game, and it zips along at a really nice pace. There are 3 difficulty levels, because at the end of the game they can score their crew cards that they've got as 2, 4 or 6 points. They don't worry about this at the bottom. They're just going to score the number of crew cards they've got as 2, 4 or 6 points, and you'll see them kind of catching up or overtaking you or stretching their lead at the end of each game. It's a really really well-designed solo system that has just a few decisions to make in terms of if you're here and you've got this, then you have to do that. But the decision trees are not too expansive. It zips along, it's easy to learn, and you get the full feel of playing Mutagen. And there we go, that's a really brief look at how David Digby's solo mode works for Mutagen. Look, I think in terms of the game itself, you know, if you get past the lore, and the lore feels like it's there just to make the mechanisms connect together, I'm not too invested in the lore. What I am invested in is the ease of the gameplay and the kind of the combo building that you've got, this real decision space about which is the best path for me, looking at what's on the board, what elements are on there, what cards are out there, what mutations are out there, how can I make myself better and stronger each round. That falls into place exceptionally quickly with this game. You really start thinking things through and try to work out these kind of mid to longer term strategies. And I think that's where the real beauty in the game lies, is just this accessibility for it. It's a really easy game to teach and a really fun game to play for people as well, because everybody feels like they're doing something on their turns. As far as the AI is concerned, David Digby has designed an absolutely first-rate AI for this. It gives you an element of what potential actions they could take, and you know, if you're playing a multiplayer game, that's what you want, is you want to understand not just what you're doing but also what your opponents are doing. And because you're turning over an action card, you get the list of potentially where they're going to go depending on what action cards turned over. That gives you a bit of an insight, and it allows you to plan against their strategy, maybe block them, maybe stop them doing something, or maybe try and overturn something on the board that makes it go kind of more in your favour than their favour, and that's really interesting as well. But the fact you've got this dual card system, where one is the actions for the round, and one is the decisions you make on a turn-by-turn basis, really kind of mixes things up. As I say, at the moment, and it's still in development, there are 12 decision cards and 8 action cards, but it does make for not a random game, but a game where you will have a different experience from a solo perspective each and every time. In terms of playing solo, once you've got used to the rules, etc., you're probably talking an hour and 15, an hour and 30 absolutely max, but somewhere between an hour and an hour and 15, which is, again, excellent for a solo game. If you're playing kind of more players than that, maybe 3 players, then you're probably looking at kind of 2 hours plus for a game like this, around about 2 hours, and that's okay as well, probably 90 minutes to 2 hours depending on how much you know. These crew cards are absolutely essential for your end of game scoring. Do not discount these crew cards for end of game scoring, because that can really make or break the game. Now, remember, in a solo game, these are going to score for the AI. Forget what's on the bottom. They're going to score 2, 4, or 6 points for each card that they've got. So you're going to be battling against those. You've got to find ways to actually get crew cards to counteract those at the end of the game. On your board, you've got the spatial puzzle of kind of working out where elements go. What do you not put next to each other? How can you make that fit? How can you pay more shards to get more storage and install stuff on your ship? The AI doesn't care about that. It's going to get the storage, absolutely, but it doesn't care where things go. It's just going to get those elements and chuck them in there. So you're battling against that at the same time. It feels, from a solo perspective, like you've got a competent opponent there. It's building up this nice steady progression as it goes through the game. It's got more actions available to it as it gets the mutations. Maybe it's got more actions because you're making it react as well at the same time, and it doesn't spend shards. You've got to think about shards at the same time. So I think what David's done is strip out some of the extraneous stuff, which would have made it a far more complex solo mode, and stripped it down to kind of what functions, what works well, and he's created a solo AI here which really does sing and really lends itself to the game. As I say, this game, it's not overly complex. The solo mode isn't overly complex. I'm a huge believer in that a game should have a solo mode of the complexity it deserves. Complex games generally deserve a complex solo AI. On this, despite a few minor decision trees, depending on what character you're putting out and where you're putting them out, it's so easy to learn, and it fits the game and the theme of the game so well. So, there we go. That's my thoughts on Mutagen from Dranda Games. As I say, it's currently on Kickstarter. Got about a week left at the moment. If it looks of interest to you, then go and check out the Kickstarter. The link will be in the description below. The solo mode is designed by David Digby, and more David Digby solo modes, please. I really enjoy David Digby's solo modes because he tends to understand what. I say that element of fitting the right solo mode into the right kind of game without extraneous levels of kind of complexity there. So yeah, Dranda Games, I think you've got another hit on your hands here. Really enjoying my time with Mutagen. So if it looks of interest to you, then go and check out on the Kickstarter. The link is in the link is in the description below. So thank you very much for watching me on this brief journey through Mutagen from Dranda Games. My name's Mark. This is Not Bored Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos. And one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, then there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.